The morning sun hit the mountains of scrap metal, casting long shadows across Tom Walker's junkyard. Tom wiped sweat from his forehead as he sorted through yesterday's haul. Business was slow in the small town of Millfield, but he made enough to get by. Another day, another dollar, Tom muttered to himself, lifting a twisted piece of aluminum and tossing it into the appropriate bin. At 52, Tom's hands were rough from years of handling metal scraps, and his back ached more often than not. Still, he loved his junkyard. Where others saw trash, he saw potential. The sound of tires on gravel announced a visitor. A rusty pickup truck pulled in, loaded with what looked like parts from an old factory demolition. "Morning, Pete," Tom called out. "What have you got for me today?" Pete, a demolition worker with a permanent layer of dust on his clothes, jumped out of the truck. "Clearing out that old aerospace plant on the edge of town. Found some weird stuff you might like." Tom helped unload the truck, sorting through bent pipes, old wiring, and chunks of concrete. At the bottom of the pile, a cylinder caught his eye. About the size of a fire extinguisher, it had no markings or seams. The metal, if it was metal, had a dull gray sheen that didn't match any alloy Tom recognized. "What's this?" Tom asked, lifting the cylinder. It was surprisingly light, like it was hollow, but showed no openings. Pete shrugged. "No idea. Found it buried in a wall we knocked down. Probably nothing." After paying Pete, Tom took the cylinder to his workshop. He placed it on his workbench and examined it closely. The surface was perfectly smooth, without a single scratch despite being in a demolished wall. He tapped it with a hammer, expecting a hollow sound, but instead heard a deep, resonant tone that lingered strangely. Curious, Tom connected a battery to the cylinder, expecting to measure electrical conductivity. The meter showed nothing, as if the cylinder wasn't there. When he placed a magnet near it, the magnet neither stuck nor was repelled. "What are you?" Tom whispered. Over the next few days, Tom ran every test he could think of. He tried cutting it. His saw blade dulled. Weighing it, the scale showed different weights each time. And heating it, it remained cool to the touch. Nothing made sense. On Friday, Tom's old friend Dr. Linda Bell stopped by. Linda taught physics at the community college and often bought odd parts from Tom for her demonstrations. "Tom, do you have any copper wire? I'm showing my students how to make simple motors and..." She stopped mid-sentence when she saw the cylinder. "What's that?" Tom explained his discovery and the strange tests. Linda's eyes grew wider with each detail. She ran her fingers over the smooth surface. "May I?" she asked, pulling a tuning fork from her bag. She struck it and held it near the cylinder. Nothing happened. She tried another fork, then another. On the fourth try, a high C note. The cylinder hummed back, exactly matching the pitch. Then, for just a second, faint lines of blue light traced across its surface. Tom and Linda looked at each other in shock. "Tom," Linda said quietly, "I think you need to bring this to my lab." The college lab was empty on Saturday. Linda placed the cylinder on a scanning platform while Tom paced nervously. "If this is what I think it is," Linda said, adjusting dials on her equipment, "it could change everything." "And what do you think it is?" Tom asked. Linda hesitated. "Something not made here. Not on Earth." Tom laughed, then realized she wasn't joking. "You mean aliens?" "I mean, I don't know what else could explain it. No known metal behaves like this. The variable weight alone breaks several laws of physics." For hours, they ran tests. Under a powerful microscope, the surface showed patterns too perfect to be natural. When exposed to different light wavelengths, it absorbed some completely while reflecting others in ways that defied explanation. The breakthrough came by accident. Linda was using a radiation detector near the cylinder when Tom knocked over a container of old watch parts. As the pieces scattered, passing through the radiation beam, the cylinder suddenly lit up with bright blue lines forming complex patterns. "It's reacting to the combination of radiation and metal." Linda gasped. They spent the next hour trying different combinations. Certain metals in specific arrangements, when exposed to low radiation, caused the cylinder to display different patterns of light. "It's communicating," Linda whispered, "or trying to." By evening, they had discovered that arranging copper, iron, and aluminum pieces in particular patterns would make holographic symbols appear above the cylinder, symbols unlike any human language. "We need to document everything," Linda said, her voice shaking with excitement. "Then contact the right people." Tom wasn't so sure. What right people? Government? Military? Linda considered this. "Let me talk to Dr. Myers first. He's the department head, and he has connections at the university." Monday morning, Tom sat uncomfortably in Dr. Myers' office while Linda presented their findings. The elderly professor listened, asked a few questions, then leaned back with a sigh. "Dr. Bell, while I respect your work, what you're suggesting is extraordinary. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." "We have evidence," Linda insisted, showing photos and data. "You have unexplained phenomena," Myers corrected. "Your jump to extraterrestrial technology is unwarranted." "Then explain how." "Military prototype, industrial accident, elaborate hoax, all more likely than aliens leaving technology in a junkyard." Myers stood up. "I suggest you run more conventional tests before embarrassing yourself with these claims." On the drive back to the junkyard, Linda was quiet. "He didn't believe us," Tom finally said. "No, and neither will anyone else without more proof." She looked at the cylinder in Tom's lap. "We need to figure out how it works first." At the junkyard, they placed the cylinder in Tom's workshop, surrounded by the arrangement of metals that had activated it before. "What now?" Tom asked. As if answering, the cylinder suddenly pulsed with blue light. The holographic symbols appeared, changing rapidly, then stabilized into what looked like a map of stars. A single point pulsed brighter than the others. "Is it pointing somewhere?" Tom wondered. Before Linda could answer, the cylinder emitted a high-pitched tone that grew louder. Then silence. "What happened?" Tom asked. Linda checked her equipment. It sent a signal, a powerful burst of directed energy. She looked at Tom, her face pale. "Into space." They stared at the now dormant cylinder, the weight of realization settling on them. "Tom," Linda whispered, "I think it just called home." Night fell over the junkyard, but neither Tom nor Linda slept. In the darkness of the workshop, the cylinder sat silently, its secret temporarily revealed. Whatever they had found, whatever had found them, was just beginning. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, something received the signal and began to move. 6 months had passed since the cylinder sent its signal to the stars. Tom had cleared out the back section of his junkyard office, transforming it into a makeshift laboratory. Metal shelves lined the walls, holding tools, measuring devices, and notebooks filled with observations. In the center stood a workbench where the cylinder rested on a specially built stand. "Any changes today?" Linda asked, entering with 2 cups of coffee. She now spent every weekend and most evenings at the junkyard. Tom shook his head. "Nothing new. Same hum when I play that C note, but no more light shows." They had kept their discovery secret after Dr. Myers' dismissal. Linda had quietly borrowed equipment from the college lab, piece by piece, building their research tools without raising suspicion. "We need fresh eyes," Linda said, sipping her coffee. "Someone who thinks differently." Tom nodded slowly. "I might know someone. Not sure you'll approve." Jack Miller lived in a small house at the edge of town. Newspapers covered his windows, and a "No Trespassing" sign hung on his gate. 10 years ago, Jack had been a respected aerospace engineer until his theories about alternative propulsion systems got him fired and blacklisted. "You want me to look at something?" Jack asked suspiciously when Tom explained why they had come. His gray beard was unkempt, his eyes darting between Tom and Linda. "Something that might prove your theories weren't so crazy," Tom replied. Jack's house was even messier inside than outside. Books, papers, and half-built devices covered every surface. Despite the chaos, Jack led them to a clean workbench in his garage. "Show me," he said. When Tom unwrapped the cylinder, Jack's hands began to shake. He circled it slowly, not touching it. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "Junkyard," Tom answered. "Is it what I think it is?" Jack finally touched the cylinder, running his fingers along its surface. "I don't know what you think it is, but I can tell you what it's not. It's not human-made." For the next 3 hours, they showed Jack everything they had learned. By the end, his eyes were bright with excitement for the first time in years. "The patterns it displayed," Jack said, pointing to Linda's photos. "They're not just symbols, they're blueprints." The following weeks became a blur of activity. Jack moved his most important equipment to Tom's workshop. With his engineering background, he saw patterns in the holographic displays that Tom and Linda had missed. "It's a propulsion system," Jack explained one evening, pointing to his drawings. "But nothing like our rockets. It manipulates gravity itself." "Can we build it?" Tom asked. Jack laughed. "With junkyard parts, impossible." But Tom was already sorting through metal scraps. "Let's try anyway." Using the cylinder as a guide, they built a small device about the size of a microwave oven. It contained a complex arrangement of copper coils, aluminum plates, and iron cores, following the patterns from the cylinder's displays. "It needs power," Jack said when the assembly was complete. They connected it to a generator. Nothing happened. "Maybe more power," Tom suggested. "Or a specific frequency," Linda added, adjusting the power flow. Suddenly, the device hummed, the same tone as the cylinder. The air around it shimmered like heat waves on summer asphalt. "It's working," Jack exclaimed, checking his instruments. "It's creating a field-off." The device shot upward, smashing into the ceiling before crashing back down. Parts scattered across the floor, but the core component remained intact. "It overcame gravity," Linda whispered, staring at the dent in the ceiling. Jack's hands trembled as he examined the broken device. "We just built a crude anti-gravity machine from junk." "Can we fix it?" Tom asked, already gathering the scattered pieces. "Fix it? We need to rebuild it properly," Jack said, "and understand how to control it." Over the next month, they built a second device with more precise components. This time, they installed it in a frame made from an old go-kart, with crude controls to adjust the power. "Who's testing it?" Linda asked when it was ready. "My junkyard, my risk," Tom said, sitting in the driver's seat. The test area was a clear space behind the scrap piles. Jack stood ready with the power controls while Linda monitored instruments from a safe distance. "Starting at 10%, Jack called, turning a dial. The device hummed. Tom felt the go-kart become lighter, pressing less against the ground. At 30%, it hovered an inch above the dirt. "It's floating," Tom called, his voice shaking with excitement. "Try the directional controls," Jack instructed. Tom pushed a lever forward. The go-kart moved slowly in that direction, floating just above the ground. "It works," Linda whispered, watching through binoculars. "It actually works." Tom made a careful circle around the test area, getting used to the strange sensation of floating. Then he pushed the lever a bit harder. The go-kart shot forward with unexpected speed. Tom pulled back, but overcorrected. The vehicle tilted sharply, then flipped over, throwing him clear before crashing into a pile of scrap metal. "Tom." Linda ran to where he lay on the ground. "I'm okay," he groaned, sitting up slowly. "But I think we need better controls." Jack was already examining the crashed vehicle. The power output suddenly multiplied. It shouldn't have done that. As they gathered the pieces, a black SUV pulled into the junkyard entrance. 2 men in suits stepped out, looking around with obvious interest. "Hide everything," Tom whispered urgently. "Now." Linda quickly covered the remains of the go-kart with a tarp while Jack slipped the cylinder into a toolbox. Tom walked toward the visitors, trying to look casual despite the dirt and bruises from his fall. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" he called. "Mr. Walker, I'm Agent Davis, Department of Energy," the taller man said, showing an ID. "We detected an unusual energy signature from this area. Mind if we look around?" Tom forced a smile. "Just a junkyard. Nothing interesting here." "We'll be the judge of that," the second agent said, already walking toward the workshop. As the agents searched, Tom, Linda, and Jack exchanged nervous glances. The cylinder remained hidden, but pieces of their work were everywhere. After an hour, the agents left, clearly unsatisfied, but without enough evidence to push further. "They'll be back," Jack said grimly. That night, as they examined the device from the crashed go-kart, they made a startling discovery. The metal components had changed on a molecular level, becoming more efficient. The cylinder, when placed near these altered parts, displayed new, more complex blueprints. "It's learning," Linda said in awe. "The technology is adapting to work with our materials. Or teaching us how to advance our own technology," Jack suggested. Tom looked at their creation, then at the government tire track still visible in his driveway. "Either way," he said, "we need to work faster." Government vehicles drove past Tom's junkyard 3 times a day now. Men in suits would park across the street, watching through binoculars. They had placed cameras on telephone poles that pointed at his gate. "We're running out of time," Tom said, closing the blinds of his office window. The team had moved their operation underground. Literally. An old storm shelter beneath the workshop now housed their project. They reached it through a trapdoor hidden under a heavy tool cabinet. "How's the translation coming?" Tom asked, climbing down the ladder into their secret lab. Linda sat at a desk covered with papers and a laptop. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept much. "Making progress," she said, pointing to her screen. "The symbols follow patterns. I think it's not just technology. It's a message." Jack worked in the corner on what looked like a small airplane made from junkyard scrap and modified car parts. Wires connected it to the cylinder, which now pulsed with soft blue light constantly. "They're scanning the ground beneath the junkyard," Jack reported, not looking up from his work. "Ground-penetrating radar, from what I could tell." "How long before they find this place?" Tom asked. "Days, maybe less," Jack replied. "Our power usage alone will give us away eventually." Tom looked at their creation. What had started as a crude anti-gravity device had evolved into something more complex. The cylinder seemed to be guiding them, showing new blueprints as they completed each stage. "We need to understand what this is before they take it away," Linda said, typing rapidly on her keyboard. "I've cracked part of the message. Listen to this." She turned her laptop toward them. The screen showed rows of alien symbols with English translations beneath. "Seed ship is the closest translation," Linda explained. "This cylinder was designed to help developing civilizations achieve space travel. It adapts to whatever technology level it finds." "Like training wheels for the stars," Jack said with a whistle. "There's more," Linda continued, scrolling down. "It was sent by a civilization that called themselves. The closest word is builders. They launched thousands of these cylinders into space as their world was dying." "Dying from what?" Tom asked. Linda shook her head. "That part isn't clear yet, but they wanted their knowledge to live on through other species." Jack stepped back from the craft he was building. It was about 15 feet long, with a rounded cabin that could fit 3 people and a propulsion system unlike anything on Earth. "Then let's not waste their gift," he said. "I think it's ready for a test." That night, they drove in 3 separate cars to an abandoned mine 5 miles outside town. The entrance was overgrown and forgotten, but the main shaft was still solid. They had spent weeks secretly clearing a path inside. Jack drove a truck carrying their covered creation. Tom and Linda brought essential supplies and the cylinder. They were careful to take different routes and check for followers. Inside the mine, they removed the tarp. Their spacecraft gleamed in the flashlight beams, a strange mix of salvaged metal and transformed components that the cylinder had altered. "Will it really fly?" Tom asked, touching the smooth hull. "In theory," Jack said, "but we won't know until we try." Linda connected her laptop to the ship's control panel. The cylinder fit perfectly into a space they had built for it, becoming the heart of the navigation system. "I've decoded more of the message," Linda said as they worked. "The builders sent these out over 5,000 years ago. They visited Earth during that time. That's why the cylinder was here." "What were they like?" Tom asked. "Advanced, peaceful explorers," Linda said. "But they were running from something. The message has warnings about. I think it translates to those who harvest." A distant rumble interrupted them. "Vehicles," Jack said, his face grim. "Lots of them." They ran to the mine entrance. Through the trees, they could see flashing lights on the road. A convoy of black SUVs and military trucks approached. "Someone talked," Tom said, "or they tracked us." "We need to go now," Jack insisted. "Ready or not." They rushed back to the ship. Jack opened the hatch, revealing a tight cabin with 3 makeshift seats. The control panel lit up as they entered. "Do you know how to fly this thing?" Tom asked as they strapped in. Jack gave a nervous laugh. "Theoretically, the cylinder has been teaching me." Linda typed frantically on her laptop. "I'm downloading the rest of the translation. There's so much we still don't know." The sounds of vehicles and voices grew louder. Flashlight beams swept the area outside. "We're out of time," Tom said. Jack pressed his hand against a panel on the dashboard. The ship hummed to life, vibrating slightly. The cylinder pulsed brighter, projecting holographic controls that Jack quickly manipulated. "Hold on," he warned. The ship rose smoothly off the ground. Jack guided it toward the mine entrance, where they could see soldiers and agents setting up equipment. "They've blocked the way out," Linda said, her voice tight with fear. Jack smiled. "Who said we're going out that way?" He pushed the controls forward. The ship shot upward, smashing through the mine's ceiling and tons of earth above it. Rock and dirt exploded around them as they burst into the night sky. Alarms blared below. Spotlights swung wildly, trying to track them. A helicopter in the distance turned toward their position. "They're going to chase us," Linda warned. "Let them try," Jack said, pushing the controls further. The ship accelerated with impossible speed. The night sky darkened rapidly as they climbed higher. The helicopter became a tiny dot below, then vanished entirely. "We just broke the sound barrier," Jack announced, checking the instruments. "Now passing 60,000 feet and climbing." Tom looked out the small window. The curve of the Earth was becoming visible against the blackness of space. "We're really leaving," he whispered. "We have to," Linda said, still working on her laptop. "According to this, the cylinder was designed to call its makers. But they're long gone. I think it connected to something else out there, perhaps other seed ships. Or the harvesters," Jack said quietly. The ship continued to climb. The blue sky faded to black. Stars appeared, impossibly bright without atmosphere to dim them. "Earth orbit achieved," Jack announced minutes later. "The military's fastest jets couldn't catch us now." Linda closed her laptop, looking troubled. "The cylinder is changing again. It's integrating deeper into the ship's systems." As if responding to her words, new holographic displays appeared around them. The cabin lights shifted to a softer glow. The humming of the engines changed pitch. On the main screen, a map of the solar system appeared. A glowing path extended from Earth to the moon. "I think," Tom said slowly, "it's showing us where to go next." Jack looked at his friends. "What do you say? Moon trip?" Linda nodded, a smile breaking through her worry. "The builders sent this cylinder to help civilization reach the stars. We might as well see what else it can teach us." Tom watched as Earth grew smaller in the window. Their little ship, built from junkyard parts and alien knowledge, carried them onwards, the first humans to travel so far in a craft of their own making. To the moon, then, he said. And after that, the stars. The moon's cratered surface stretched below them as their ship, now named Phoenix, circled in a low orbit. During the 3-day journey from Earth, the vessel had transformed. What once looked like a heap of junkyard scrap welded together now had smoothed into sleek lines. The cylinder had integrated deeper into the ship's systems, reshaping metal and rewiring circuits while they slept. "It's still changing," Tom said, running his hand along a wall that had once been the hood of an old truck. Now it felt warm and slightly flexible, like living metal. Linda floated to the front window, her movements more graceful after days in zero gravity. "The builders designed these seed ships to evolve. It's adapting our crude materials into something more advanced." In the pilot's seat, Jack studied the new controls that had appeared overnight. Holographic displays showed maps of the solar system with travel paths marked in glowing blue lines. "I think it wants us to go farther," he said, pointing to a path that led beyond Mars. "It's showing routes to the outer planets." "Can we make it that far?" Tom asked. "What about air and food?" As if answering his question, a new section of the ship had opened that morning, revealing a system that recycled their air and water with perfect efficiency. Small green plants now grew in chambers along one wall, providing fresh oxygen and edible leaves. "The cylinder is solving our problems as they arise," Linda said. "It's like it's teaching us, step by step, how to become a spacefaring species." A flashing red light interrupted them. Jack checked the display and frowned. "Something's approaching from Earth, moving fast." They gathered around the screen. A small craft was following their path to the moon, but its design was like nothing they had seen before. "Military," Tom suggested. Jack shook his head. "Too advanced, and it's broadcasting a message." Linda connected her laptop to the communication system. After a moment, a voice came through, speaking English with a heavy accent. "Unknown vessel. This is International Space Coalition Vessel Orion. You are operating unauthorized technology. Prepare for boarding and inspection." Jack muted the transmission. International Space Coalition. Never heard of them. A secret space program? Tom wondered. Linda was already searching through the ship's newly expanded database. Here, formed 3 months ago. A joint operation between major world powers after detecting our cylinder signal. They'd been developing their own spacecraft based on partial data they gathered from our tests. They tracked the signal, Jack realized. That's how they found us at the junkyard. The approaching ship grew larger on their screen. It was sleek and clearly built for military purposes, with what looked like weapons mounted on its hull. "What do we do?" Tom asked. "We can't let them take the cylinder." Jack studied the navigation charts. "The cylinder is showing us a jump point, some kind of faster-than-light travel. But it's not fully integrated yet. We need more time." "Then we run," Tom decided. Jack nodded and pressed his hands against the controls. Phoenix responded instantly, accelerating away from the moon with a burst of speed that pushed them back into their seats. "They're following," Linda reported, watching the rear scanners. "And gaining." "I don't understand," Jack said, pushing the engines harder. "Our technology should be more advanced." Linda studied the readings. "They've had government resources and hundreds of scientists working on this. We had 3 people and a junkyard. But we had the complete cylinder," Tom pointed out. A beam of energy shot past them, missing by inches. "They're shooting at us." Jack swerved the ship, narrowly avoiding another blast. Tom moved to a panel that had just lit up with new controls. Somehow, he knew exactly what they did. "We have defenses too," he said, pressing a sequence of holographic buttons. A shimmering field appeared around Phoenix, deflecting the next energy blast. "The cylinder is responding to the threat," Linda observed. "It's accelerating its integration." Jack pointed to a new path appearing on the navigation display. "It's showing us a way out, past Mars." "Can we make it?" Tom asked. "We're about to find out," Jack replied. setting their course to follow the glowing path. Phoenix shot forward with incredible speed, leaving Earth and the Moon far behind. The pursuing ship fell back, but continued to follow. Hours passed as they raced through space, the red planet growing larger ahead. Mars orbit in 5 minutes, Jack announced. As they approached the planet, new information appeared on their screens, detailed maps of the Martian surface with one location marked. "It wants us to land there," Linda said, pointing to the highlighted area. "What about our friends back there?" Tom asked, gesturing to the pursuing ship, now a distant dot on their sensors. "We've gained enough lead. Let's see what the cylinder wants to show us," Jack decided, beginning their descent toward the Martian surface. Phoenix entered the thin Martian atmosphere smoothly, its hull glowing slightly but showing no signs of stress. They landed in a vast canyon, the ship settling gently on the red soil. "We're on Mars," Tom whispered, staring out the window at the rust-colored landscape. "Actual Mars." Linda checked the external sensors. "Atmosphere is unbreathable, temperatures well below freezing. We can't go outside without protection." As she spoke, a compartment opened in the ship's wall, revealing 3 suits that looked nothing like Earth spacesuits. They were thin and flexible, almost like second skins. "The cylinder is still providing," Jack said with a grin. Once suited up, they stepped through the airlock onto Martian soil. Their footprints joined the tracks of Earth's robots, but they were the first human feet to touch the planet. Over there, Linda pointed to a rock formation that didn't look natural. As they approached, they saw it was the entrance to a tunnel, clearly artificial. Inside, their suit lights revealed a chamber with walls covered in symbols similar to those on the cylinder. In the center stood a pedestal with a depression exactly the size and shape of their cylinder. "It's a builder site," Linda said in awe. "They were here thousands of years ago." "Look at this," Tom called from a side chamber. Inside was what appeared to be a map of the stars, with several points marked with the same symbol. "Other builder outposts," Linda translated after studying the markings. "The nearest is Alpha Centauri." Jack whistled. "The nearest star system to Earth, 4 light-years away." "Impossible to reach with our technology," Tom said. "But not with theirs," Linda replied, pointing back to their ship. When they returned to Phoenix, the cylinder was pulsing with bright blue light. New systems had appeared throughout the ship, and the navigation display now showed a path stretching beyond the solar system. "It's completed its integration," Jack said, examining the controls. "The faster-than-light drive is ready." The radar beeped. The pursuing ship had entered Mars orbit and was scanning for them. "Perfect timing," Tom said. "Let's see what this thing can really do." Linda checked her translations one last time. "According to this, the jump will take less than an hour." 4 light-years in under an hour, Jack marveled. "Ready?" They strapped in as Jack activated the new drive. The ship hummed, vibrations building throughout the hull. Outside, a bubble of blue energy formed around them. "Here goes nothing," Jack said, pressing the final control. The stars stretched into lines of light, and Mars vanished as Phoenix made the first human jump to another star. The jump to Alpha Centauri lasted 47 minutes by their clock. For Tom, it felt like a dream. Stars streaking past in rivers of light, while their small ship traveled faster than human science had thought possible. When they emerged, a new star system spread before them. 2 suns dancing around each other, with planets circling in complex patterns. "We made it," Linda whispered, her face pressed against the viewport. "We're the first humans to see another star up close." Jack checked the navigation display. The cylinder had marked one of the planets, a blue-green world orbiting at a distance similar to Earth from its sun. "That's where we're headed," he said, pointing. "Atmosphere reads as breathable. Gravity slightly stronger than Earth." Phoenix approached the planet, which grew larger on their screens. Continents of deep green spread across blue oceans. White clouds swirled in patterns different from Earth's. As they entered the atmosphere, Sensors detected no signs of cities or technology. "Seems uninhabited," Tom said. "Wait," Linda pointed to a blinking indicator on their map. "There's something on that mountain range." They landed in a valley surrounded by tall purple-leaved trees. The air outside was safe to breathe but smelled different, sweeter, with hints of unknown spices. A path led from their landing spot up the mountainside. "The cylinder is pulsing faster," Tom noted as they prepared to exit the ship. "Like it's excited." Outside, they followed the path upward. Strange bird-like creatures with 6 wings called from the trees. Small animals scurried away as they approached. After an hour of climbing, they reached a structure built into the mountainside. Its entrance formed of the same smooth, seamless material as the cylinder. "Another builder site," Linda said, "but much larger." The entrance opened automatically as they approached. Inside, corridors lit up with soft blue light, guiding them deeper. They entered a vast chamber where technology beyond their understanding hummed with quiet power. In the center stood a platform similar to the one they had seen on Mars, but larger. "The cylinder wants to be placed there," Jack said, feeling a strange pull from the device they carried. Tom carefully set the cylinder on the platform. It fit perfectly. The moment it connected, the entire chamber came alive. Holographic displays appeared all around them, showing star maps, technical diagrams, and streams of symbols. A voice spoke, not in English, but somehow they understood it. "Seed ship protocol complete. Awakening sequence initiated." The wall at the far end of the chamber slid open, revealing another room. Inside were pods, dozens of them, arranged in circles. As they watched, the pods began to open. The beings that emerged looked almost human, but with subtle differences: slightly larger eyes, skin with a faint bluish tint, more delicate builds. They moved with careful, deliberate steps, as if unused to walking. One approached the team. "Visitors," it said in that same strange voice they somehow understood. "You have activated the beacon. You have found our sanctuary." Linda stepped forward. "Who are you?" "We are the last of the builders," the being replied. "I am the keeper of records. You may call me Keeper." Over the next hours, they learned the truth. The builders had once been a great civilization spanning many star systems. They had seeded thousands of worlds with their cylinders, hoping to guide young species to the stars. But they had encountered another species, the Harvesters, who saw advanced technology as a threat. The Harvesters destroyed any civilization that reached a certain level of development, harvesting their resources and moving on. "We fought them for centuries," Keeper explained, "but they were too many. In the end, we scattered, hiding a few survivors in sanctuaries across the galaxy, hoping that someday one of our seed ships would find a species clever enough to use our technology in new ways." "And that's us?" Tom asked. "Humans." Keeper's large eyes studied him. "Your approach is unique. You built a starship from discarded materials. You adapted our technology rather than simply copying it. This is something the Harvesters would not expect." "They're still out there?" Jack asked. "Yes. They hibernate for centuries between harvests. But they are awakening now. Your world's development has reached the threshold that triggers their attention." Linda paled. "Earth is in danger." "Great danger," Keeper confirmed. "But perhaps you have found a solution they will not anticipate." The Keeper led them to another chamber filled with builder technology. "Here are our greatest weapons and defenses, but they failed us because the Harvesters learned to counter them." Tom walked among the advanced devices, touching one that looked similar to parts of their ship. "But what if we combined your technology with our junkyard approach? Make something the Harvesters haven't seen before." Keeper's eyes widened. An interesting possibility. For the next 2 weeks, they worked alongside the builders. Tom's junkyard thinking, Jack's engineering skills, and Linda's understanding of both human and builder languages created a bridge between the two species. They developed hybrid systems, builder technology with human unpredictability built in. The Harvesters expect logical progression. Keeper explained as they tested a new weapon system. Your species jumps in unexpected directions. You use outdated components alongside advanced ones. You repurpose. You improvise. We make do with what we have, Tom said with a shrug. And that may save you, Keeper replied. One morning, alarms sounded throughout the sanctuary. Keeper rushed to the main chamber, the humans following close behind. A harvester scout ship has entered your solar system, Keeper announced, pointing to a display showing Earth's neighborhood. A red dot moved slowly toward the third planet. We have to warn them, Linda said. There is no time to travel back, Keeper said. But we can send a message through the builder network. Your cylinder was not the only one on Earth. They composed a message explaining the threat and detailing the hybrid defenses they had created. Keeper sent it through the builder network, directing it to activate any dormant cylinders on Earth. 3 days later, they received a response. Earth governments had found several more cylinders in ancient ruins around the planet. Using the plans Tom's team sent, they had begun building defenses. It may not be enough, Keeper warned. The Scout will call the Harvester fleet if it confirms Earth's technology level. Then we'll have to stop it before it can report back, Jack said. Phoenix had been upgraded with their hybrid technology. It was now faster and more powerful, but still retained its junkyard heart. They boarded the ship, along with 2 builder engineers who volunteered to help. Good luck, Keeper said as they prepared to depart. The future of both our peoples may depend on this mission. They jumped back to the solar system, arriving near Jupiter's orbit. The Harvester Scout was already approaching Earth, its sensors scanning human communications and technology. It hasn't noticed us yet, Jack said, checking their stealth systems. Builder technology combined with an old radar-absorbing paint Tom had found in his junkyard years ago. They approached from behind, weapons ready. The harvester ship was massive, 10 times the size of Phoenix, and bristling with sensors and weapons. One shot, Tom said. We need to hit its communication array before it can send a signal. Jack piloted them closer. Linda targeted the array using the new hybrid weapons system. The builders operated the engines with practiced precision. Now, Linda called. Their first shot, a beam of energy guided by junkyard targeting systems, hit perfectly. The harvester's communication array exploded. Before it could react, they fired again and again, targeting engines and weapons. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. The crippled Harvester Scout drifted dead in space, unable to fight or call for help. We did it, Tom breathed. We actually did it. As Earth forces approached the damaged ship, Tom looked out at his home planet, blue and beautiful against the blackness of space. What had started with a strange cylinder in his junkyard had led to humanity's first victory against a threat they hadn't even known existed. Back on Earth, production had already begun on a fleet of ships built using Tom's hybrid approach, combining advanced builder technology with humanity's knack for repurposing and improvisation. The junkyard philosophy that Tom had lived by his whole life, finding value in what others discarded, seeing potential where others saw trash, had become humanity's greatest strength among the stars. Not bad for a piece of junk, Tom said, patting Phoenix's control panel as they headed home.